It's never too early or you're never too young to get started in finance. This week on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. All right, my guest today is almost 22 years old, and Candela recently graduated from the University of St. Thomas with a double major in entrepreneurship and marketing. She then went on to obtain her life, accident, and health Minnesota insurance license, all while interning at Northwest Mutual, as well as an SIE Series 66 and Series 7 investment licenses. And remember, she's almost 22 years old. I'm really excited to have a conversation today with Candela. Candela, how you doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So this is a question, and again, you and I met in person. You've been coming to the in-person Stacking Benjamins Twin Cities meetup group, which is super awesome. I mean, just to have like real in-person meetings with other people that have similar interests. And so it's great that you started coming at such an early age.
Yeah, I really like just finding the community. I started with the MN group. Like I started thinking about fire way before that, but it's just really cool to actually meet with people who are doing it. And then I am in a weird demographic compared to all these people being like, okay, I want to retire. And I'm like, I need to get a job. So it's kind of fun to
Right.
get the different opinions.
Totally. Well, and that kind of raises the question, right? So you starting at such a young age, right? At what got you interested in finance? And then as of right now, I mean, pursuing finance. When did it start for you?
Yeah, so it started like really early, basically before I was like a sapient human being forming actual memories, because it's my parents. Like I got a lot of really good education from them. My mom stayed at home, but she was very much not the typical like stay-at-home mom. She was incredibly entrepreneurial, very financially savvy. So in elementary school, she was one of, if you've ever seen extreme couponing, she was like just shy of that.
Okay.
So she'd do all this couponing and then we'd do these big garage sales. So little fifth grade me was like making change. And my sister and I
Right.
ran a little snack stand. We didn't do a lemonade stand as kids. We had the snack stand because adults generally don't trust lemonade made by a 3-year-old, but they will trust prepackaged snacks like
Sure.
cans of pop and stuff. So my sister and I did that. And one of the stories my dad almost like tells it better than I do is going to VBS as a kid, which is like vacation Bible school, and you'd get these little prize tickets for memorizing verses and attendance and whatnot. And I am such a natural saver that little kid me at the end of the week was like, okay, I saved up all my tickets for next year. And my dad was like, oh no, like
That's
we taught her too well.
that's
And
awesome.
so he was like, I'll give you, I don't remember what it was, like a dime a piece. Don't do that next year. But you you learn too well. So like a big natural saver from the second I was getting any sort of like allowance for chores. It was like tithe 10%, save 10%. I knew about Roth IRAs before I started my first job, which was like in the
Wow.
middle of COVID, which is kind of, or right before COVID, because I remember both no masks and masks, which is
Hmm.
weird to think about. Like I was already like, okay, everything goes in a Roth IRA. I knew about building credit. Uh, I started like really looking into the credit card hacking and stuff when I was like 16, 17. Like, okay, do this once you turn 18 and get your first credit card. So I'm really quite privileged in that context 'cause I grew up around it. I was rental stuff. My parents, when they bought their first house, they never sold it. They rented it out.
Okay.
Both the some of the fiscal, like how does this work and how do you write a contract, and also the pragmatic of, well, the tenants are complaining that the washing machine is broken, so you're going over and helping fixing it because we're not paying hundreds of
Sure.
dollars for a new machine if we can fix it.
Man, you had such great experience and role models growing up. That's just awesome. I love that. So you're not, I guess, I mean, you definitely are not the typical Gen Z out there that I see. So like what do you think some of the biggest or one of the biggest money myths that Gen Z has today? Like when you talk to your friends and stuff, what do you think that big myth is?
Yeah, there's the stuff that's frequently talked about, like the dangers of compound interest on credit cards. and needing to invest in retirement early because of compound growth. The one that really irks me, and I'm seeing come up quite recently, personal property is not an investment. Even a house or education is questionable. A house or educational is like questionable, but a car, a purse, a watch, a collectible trinket, those are not investments. Run from any sales rep who is like, you're going to sell this luxury watch for more someday. Like, no, it's not an investment. It doesn't
Right.
belong in the investment category.
Yeah, I know. I get a little bit of hate here and there because I often will talk about my primary house isn't necessarily an investment. My rental
No, I
houses
think
are an investment.
houses need to act more like a commodity because yes, you can pull equity out of them, but as long you need to live somewhere, as long as you're living somewhere, you want to be really careful pulling equity out of your primary residence. Like that can be part of long-term care planning and stuff, but you don't want to do that if you plan to live there for a long time. Like there's just so many ways it can go wrong.
Oh, totally, totally. I mean, do you think the Gen Z people, like your friends, should they start caring about taxes, retirement, estate planning now, like in their 20s?
Yeah. Um, it depends on the thing, like taxes, 100%, especially in your late 20s, early 30s, where you're really ramping up your career and those are your primary income earning years. Taxes, very well, it's probably going to be in your top three expense line items. So you want
Mm,
to maximize you want to minimize your taxes. And
sure.
then retirement compound growth is a beast. Like max out your employer match, pay off high interest debt, worry about that. Estate planning, when you're in your early 20s, you probably don't have much of any of an estate to plan. So, like, do your will, your medical directives as early as reasonably possible. Name your beneficiaries as soon as you start an account. But don't worry about like trust documents and stuff. Like, worry about that when you have an estate to plan. But your
What about
20s, probably not worth it.
Sure. What about life insurance? What do you feel about that? Like usually in my head, I had always thought, well, I have no one relying on my salary, so I wouldn't get life insurance. But some people say,
Okay.
hey, while you're young, you can still get life insurance.
There's differing schools of thought. Um,
Hmm.
so I would say if you are like when you're young, you're the most insurable you will ever be. So if you're 20 and the direction of your life, you think you are going to have dependents, basically, if you're 20 and you're like, I want to get married and have kids, then I'd say get yourself a nice guaranteed renewable term life policy because you'll need it. And that way, if a diagnosis does hit in your 30s when you're actually hitting those married and having kids goals, you're already insured and term is quite cheap. However, I don't like the, oh, you're 20 and therefore you must have this whole life policy because it's an investment for whatever. Like, if you don't have dependents, you don't need it. It's like a pretty narrow span of life where you really need life insurance.
Hmm.
So, and a lot of my friends, my friend group is very biased. And so at like Northwestern, they were kind of like, oh, everyone needs, all of your young insurable people need life insurance because they will have a spouse and kids. And I'm like, most of my friends are not driven in that direction. Like, most of them are
Sure.
like, no, I'm me, myself, and I. And if you're me, myself, and I, then you definitely need long-term disability insurance because
Mm,
you're fully reliant on your own ability to earn income. But unless you have a big charity goal, you don't need life insurance.
right on. Well, so that leads me to another thing about like your friend group. And again, I'm kind of comparing this to my kids. I have my kids that are just a little bit older than you. And so they're kind of, I guess, skeptical about traditional finance, right? Like Wall Street, and they think all financial advisors are crooks and how do you help get your generation or like your peers to really start to trust people like you and people that are financial advisors?
Once I figure that out, I'll let you know. Like, it is so trust based. Like, I think part of the reason the financial advising field hasn't been completely replaced by robo advisors is because people like to sit across the table from an actual human being. Money is involved in all of our hopes and dreams. And so having someone, I think personally, it builds a lot of trust when I tell people, you don't need XYZ product. I'm not going to sell you XYZ product. Like, I could make a big commission off of selling 20-year-olds, like being like, you need whole life insurance and it's a guarantee, it's like a savings account. Like I could represent it in ways to sell it, but like that would feel dishonest, might be putting it a bit strongly, but like that's not what I want to do. And so I'll tell people, giving them a quick win early on, being like, you're saving in a checking account. Open a high yield savings account. I don't care where. This is what I use. This is the rate. You can probably find better rates. Like, but put that money in a high yield savings account instead of a checking account or a standard savings account. And you can do that tonight. And like you give people a quick win. But I'm not at all surprised that people are distrustful of traditional finance because there's so many tools available for the retail investor. Used to be retail investors couldn't stock pick, and now you can. You probably shouldn't, but you can. Like there's so much stuff where the traditional approach doesn't work anymore. We're very leveraged in modern economy. So, something, if you want to do the Dave Ramsey no debt approach, that is not possible unless you have a lot of privilege, really. And so I can see the alienation.
Totally, I totally agree. I have a couple blog posts that talk a lot about some of the Dave Ramsey methodology and why it's super challenging for our Gen Z, and even some of those millennials too. It's really hard and maybe even unattainable. So totally understand that for sure. So if you mention, okay, so we know that it's hard to build trust, but we also know that Gen Z gets a lot of their financial cues, if you will, from social media, right? They're all over the TikToks. My kids love it when I call it the TikTok. Uh, so, like, we're talking about like social media, like creators, finfluencers. What are some of, like, in your opinion, what are some of the red flags that you see in that space that are like, like how do you filter out between like the hype and like what truly is
Yeah.
legit advice?
There's, I think the biggest red flag is like too good to be true. Anyone saying you're going to make big returns fast is either like a grifter, like you will not make big returns, or they're doing something super illegal. So, yeah, if someone's saying you're going to make 50% return, like guaranteed, like, no, you're not. That's if someone's selling a course on how to make courses so that you can sell them, like,
Right.
they're a grifter. However, there are also plenty of infotainment and finfluencers and whatever you want to call it, who are like really good informative channels, which have this kind of simple advice, or it's simple if you've been in the industry, but can be really groundbreaking for people who weren't raised around this stuff of like, wait, you're telling me there are people who genuinely didn't realize that credit cards are not free money.
Is that
And
crazy?
until they heard about it in like Caleb Hammer. I'm like, Caleb Hammer, I consider like an infotainment channel. Like I do find it entertaining. But there are a lot of good channels, and even those good channels will get nastygram comments if you oversimplified blah blah blah. Like it depends on what stage you're at, really. Because there's plenty of basic channels. I really like 2 cents for kind of that entry level stuff, where they're talking about how compound interest works and all that. But sometimes people are at the level where you need to say, no, credit cards, if you are carrying a balance, the points will never make up for carrying a balance. The credit cards make their money by charging you a bunch of interest. So if you are gaming the system, you need to be really careful. And unfortunately, I wish credit cards were not so mandatory for like credit score and credit cards and everything weren't so mandatory for adulting because some people are not credit card people. And it's okay to not be a credit card person. But there's also so much sneaky debt of buy now, pay later. That is debt. Credit cards are typically like 25% rates, which is a lot. You should never be considering that rate like an investment. If you have a mortgage at 3%, like, okay, the market will probably beat that. But credit card 25%, never. Like, pay that down. Or another credit card misnomer, people think you need to carry a balance to build your credit score. You just need to keep the card open. Pay off the balance every month. It's a revolving line of credit. Like
Right.
there's so many things. Even I didn't know. I was raised around like, hey, this is how you don't ruin your life with credit cards. Even I didn't know if you carry a balance, the grace period goes away for new purchases.
Mm.
Like I didn't know that. I read the whole agreement of my first credit card. Like I was raised around this stuff. I'm like, if you're not raised around this stuff, you don't stand the chance. And there's so many grifters and people trying to misinform you to make a quick buck. And it's really sad because there's also good information and we have the democratization of good information, but also so much slop out there.
Totally. I completely understand. But and also, you were just talking about credit card and credit card debt. With everything from student debt to the rising cost of living, because of inflation, the younger generation may feel as though, well, they have to rely on this credit card to make some of those decisions. How do you feel as though the pressures from rising cost of living are like totally like changing the way your generation may look at long-term vision, or what decisions are you currently making because of the rising cost of things?
Yeah, I think we see doom spending because people are. This is one of the things that, like, the boomer generation doesn't understand because the economy was very different when they were young adults entering the workforce. Commodities, this luxury spending is proportionally much cheaper than living expenses compared
Mm,
to the way it was even with like, everyone forgets about the Xers, but like in the 80s, the things that boomers like, will stop buying coffees and Netflix subscriptions and stuff. Like, no, you don't understand. You can skip your morning Starbucks for 10 years and still not be able to afford a down payment. Like, it doesn't make much of a difference. Now, little luxuries do add up, especially with the rise of blind boxes and online shopping where people are like dropping like $100, which will make a difference. But some of the little luxuries are really outsized. Think for me personally, there's a lot of take advantage. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this because I have this general philosophy. If you have privilege, take as much advantage of it as you can without actively exploiting others. And so financially, I'm incredibly lucky because my college was entirely paid for, aside from like textbooks and incidentals, by not me. I had full ride tuition remission, and my grandpa paid my room and board because he really cared about me
wonderful.
going to St. Like, that's tremendous. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, I can be an entrepreneur or whatever. I have parents who will let me live in their house for after college. Like, not everyone has that. So I'm saving, depending on how you count, like tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars just because of those privileges of having like engaged parents who made their own decisions to help me out. Because my dad stayed in his career for a long time so that his kids could have tuition remission. And so kind of looking at like youngins, like if you have parents that let you live in their basement, I know it's not cool and you probably want to go off and like be on your own, but you'll save a lot of money and you need to take advantage of that. Right now, I'm looking at house hacking because dealing with an estate, my parents are kind of like, well, we have a vacant property, which is like a lot of paperwork and a lot of stuff needs to be done. They're like, hey, if you help out and install LVP and do all the cleaning and estate sales and like all of that sort of stuff, if you're engaged in that process, you have access to get into property earlier than you're supposed to. It's like, it'd be very dumb for me to look at that and go, nah, I could do it on my own. It's like, you can't do anything
Right.
on your own. Everything's a function of your environment. So it's like, nah, take advantage of that. And it's like, okay, I can get into market rent for a house I'm not supposed to be able to afford, and I can sublet and I can house hack. And normally I wouldn't have access to that, but it'd be stupid to deny
Right.
that access because like, oh, it's not exactly what I want. Like, no, nothing's going to be exactly what you want. You need to put things together and make it work. But putting things together and making it work is complicated, and it's not what Gen Z was sold. Because I was kind of
Mhm.
sold, go to college, graduate, get a good job that will make you enough income to go off on your own. And that's looking less and less feasible. So now it's like, okay, I need a good enough job and I need to pull shenanigans.
It's interesting that you say that. So I'm in this business group, and we go to lunch every Wednesday. And one time I was there, and this CPA, um, this guy that's there, he brought one of his new employees with to lunch, and he was new. He just finished college. He was like an accountant doing some busy work, just getting his feet wet, kind of a thing. And I'm having a conversation with him, and I'm saying, what do you like to do? Oh, where do you live? And he's like, well, I'm still living at home. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic, because now he's in a spot where he can just stack cash, like
Yeah.
that. I was like, take advantage. And I mentioned to him, like, he doesn't know me from anybody, but I'm like, if you have the opportunity, you're fortunate to be able to, in a situation where you can really start to save money. And hopefully he kind of uses that to better himself. So I absolutely agree with you, man. So what do you think if you could give, so again, I'm just super curious about your generation, because we've talked a lot on this podcast over the last 70 some episodes about, different studies that come out, people, Empower had a study that said, oh, um, Gen Z thinks they need $500,000 a year salary to be successful, like stuff like that, which is just totally crazy. But if you could give a money principle or like a money rule to someone that's like 18 to 25, what would that be?
I think it's the avoid high interest debt at all costs.
Okay.
Like, not to pull a Dave Ramsey because, mortgage, student loans, like that plays different, but the car loans that are at 15%, the credit card, like just all of that. Also, everything on social media is fake. People are way seriously, people are renting stuff, and they're often renting stuff on credit cards. Like they have not a dollar to their name, but they're driving a Lamborghini and they're in an exotic country. Like that's that's not real. They're not actually rich.
That
How
crazy?
wealth
It's so crazy.
Yeah, like there's so many consumer things that are indicators of wealth, and like those people are flat broke. So it's not glamorous, it's not fun, um, but just leverage the opportunities you have and really try and avoid like that high interest debt. And I think we're getting to a less judgmental culture. There are a lot of things where I'm like, you know what, like get your bag, like whatever works. Who am I to say, oh, like you should have done it like the right way. Whatever it is, if think towards your future. Like social media, it's very easy to do stuff for attention right now and not realize it's ruining your employability. But also part of me is like, if you accidentally go viral because of something you said when you were drunk, capitalize the grift. Like I can't be mad at you for it.
For sure. Well, and that's the crazy. You mentioned, I just something was going through my head there, because you mentioned too, like stay away from high interest debt, and you mentioned like even like the buy now pay later is everywhere, and that also is
Because
that.
there's 0% until you add the fees, which are often per transaction, and the penalties and everything. Personally, part of the reason I like credit cards is because it takes a month worth of spending and puts it on one itemized bill, so it's fewer things to keep track of. I could not stand breaking up a fast food meal. Also, don't do like DoorDash and stuff. That's disproportionately expensive. But I could not imagine taking like $20 and breaking it into four payments and needing to keep track of that. Like,
Well,
no.
and the crazy part is that you can do buy now pay later on DoorDash. So
Yeah,
you buy a
I'm not
couple
making that up.
burritos.
And pay for it for the next 2 months. I'm like, why would I don't want to do that.
It's so crazy.
Some people like breaking it up into small purchases, but like that would just be really frustrating to me. Sometimes you can use it to cash flow better. There are smart ways of using buy now, pay later, but it's such a dangerous game. I would lose track of it.
Yeah, so crazy, so crazy. If you look ahead, because you're you're into what's happening now with like all the technical tools, right? You said, I mean, now retail investing, there's apps, there's
AI is
things that
taking
people
all
can
of our
use.
jobs.
Yeah, well, if you look ahead, right? So like with AI and all the apps that we have, what do you think, or how do you think this is like reshaping how your generation invests today and into the future?
I think that's like so complex. Because I think that AI is very good at credible misinformation, which is part of the scary thing is I've used like ChatGPT. I've gone to a bunch of different resources for personal finance of like what are my potential clients looking at and getting their information from. And like ChatGPT is my AI of choice just because it's the one I know the best. And it'll give you accurate, sort of accurate, but a little bit overgeneralized, and then like complete misinformation, then accurate, which is terrifying. Like it's errors that are different than how humans make errors. And I also worry about people learning to exploit these algorithms to boost things that should not be boosted. Like, I think AI is going to make pump and dump schemes much more effective because you can generate a lot of buzz artificially really quickly. You could invent a crypto, get all your founders into that crypto. I say crypto because it's not very well regulated right now. Governments are slow, but invent a cryptocurrency, get all your early investors in, uh, publish 20, 50, 100 articles like in a day of like, oh, this crypto is going to blow up. You have people buy in. All your investors sell off, and then you don't care where it goes. Like there's going to be
You
more of that.
almost I would say you almost just described the Haktua coin,
Yeah,
right? I mean, she
it's
started that
a
and
it's
immediately,
so easy,
oh
whether
man.
intentionally or unintentionally, to create a pump and dump, which is kind of why I don't mess with crypto, just because I don't know it well enough to avoid the
Mhm.
scams and the grifts. And you can have the same thing with like little baby stocks. And that's like my biggest worry. Though also, I think some dominant good advice that has become too dominant and overweighted. For instance, the S&P is at really high PE ratios, which is price to earnings. Normally it's around like 10 to 15, and right now it's hovering around 25 last I checked. It's probably overvalued, and that's probably because every retail investor has been told just dollar cost average into the S&P 500, it always grows over the long term. And it's like, that's good. Like, it's good advice, but it needs to sit in a context because if it's like, the S&P has become more of a myth than a basket of
Interesting.
securities. And so it's like it's super overvalued. Like a company making it into the S&P, suddenly its valuation will jump a bunch. It's like we have a lot of myth around this, and it's so easy to get things mixed up. And so I definitely worry about AI giving investor advice and the internet, because the internet, the more sensational something is, the better it does. No one wants to hear get rich in a boring and slow way.
Right? They want to jump into the hype, right? The
Yeah,
quick gains.
people want the hype. And then the
Yeah.
job market is a completely different thing. Like, because I was thinking, okay, we have a gazillion people going into software. I'm not going to go into software. So it's like, okay, I went into business, which is like the most generic degree. But now we have AI taking over the arts, and it's a big excuse for companies to reduce hiring, but it's not good at a lot of the stuff we're trying to make it do, but it's good enough at a lot of stuff we're trying to make it do. And I don't know if the internet attention economy is going to change as soon as the advertisers realize that the internet is 50% bots and most of their clicks are fake. Like, I have no idea where it's going to go. It's kind of terrifying. I'm like everyone else in my generation where I'm looking for a job, and I'm kind of thinking like, do I go back to Trader Joe's? Like at least they have health insurance. Like move
Right.
boxes. AI isn't replacing moving boxes just yet.
Well, I heard that on the news the other day. They were talking about again counseling some of those younger people in, um, even
Is
middle
this the
school and high school.
ChatGPT is my therapist?
In high school, no, but like if you're looking at, like, let's say you're like determining like what you're going to go to college for, what you want to do for a living if you're in school, and like some people like that they're creative and they want to be a graphic designer. Well, some like guidance counselors and stuff are saying, don't be a graphic designer because all those jobs are going to AI. But this is what I I've learned, and again, I listen to a bunch of podcasts and and read a bunch of articles, and I've learned too that AI, everyone says, oh, they're going to take all our jobs. And so while some of these tasks are being replaced by AI, I've learned that a lot of what's being output is now what's called AI slop. And slop is that stuff that still needs to be fixed by a human. And so it's not replacing the people as fast as they said it is because we still need people to fix all the slop.
Yeah,
So
I think people
even if you're a
assisted by
graphic
AI.
designer, you're going to need a human.
Yeah. People assisted by AI, I think, is going to increasingly dominate the
Totally.
market because AI can be leveraged. Like I basically talked about in creative stuff, I want AI to take over the grunt work, not the bulk of creativity. So I'm in a lot of like fandom spaces, and fandom is so mad about people who use AI art. And writers, especially, are kind of like, why would I take the process that I like, which is the original writing, give it to AI and then only do the part I hate, which is the editing, which is kind of a funny like bit of like, no, the fun is in the writing and in the creating. Like AI, using AI for removing backgrounds and stuff, like awesome. Using like there's plenty of grunt work tasks where I'm like, yeah, I use a grammar checker. Like I'm not gonna pull out a paperback dictionary and be like, did I spell this right? Like there's things where software and AI can assist,
Did you
but
know? Did you
like
know?
AI writing an email and then AI summarizing an email on the other side. I'm like, we're not even humans communicating anymore.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Did you know? And this is again for my listeners too that may not know. So again, the first 18 years of my career, I was in the printing technology and design space, and there was a time when I made a living doing alpha masks, doing like hair masks, basically removing the background for professional photography to go into commercial print and on web. And that was my job. Like I removed backgrounds and now you can do it with a push of a button, which is so crazy to me.
And so like AI is taking some jobs because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that used to be an intern at a lot of places and now it's AI. But like AI can't replace artists. Even in the marketing advertising side, you have lots of firms where it's like, oh, fantastic, our storyboarding. Instead of finding a bunch of stock images, we can generate what we want, but they're still making the final ad outside of AI because they realize currently, consumer attitude is going to be a whole nother thing, but consumers currently hate AI. So companies are like, okay, we'll storyboard using AI and then we will create those shots in real life. But also, I'm terrified of like Sora and stuff because reality and AI in creative spheres is getting so, like, it's getting a lot more difficult to tell. I distinctly remember, like, I was in school in the early days of ChatGPT. So I was better than ChatGPT at most of the assignments I was doing. And as I graduated, there were plenty of things that ChatGPT was better than me at, like image generation. It used to be the tell was that words never made any sense and people had the wrong number of fingers. And now that's a lot less. Like you need to find different tells, and that's kind of terrifying.
Right. I know that. And you got to be careful too. I mean, I've noticed several times when if you look close enough, their hands just aren't right, right? Stuff like that, where maybe, even like in the back, they may be missing fingers or something. Like it looks almost real, but you can still tell. Well, I want to like as we start wrapping up here, I want to ask you as someone that, maybe I don't mean any negativity, but as someone that doesn't have as much experience with money as someone like me, what is one of your biggest, I guess, do you have like a regret about money so far? Like something that you did with money that you're like, "Oh, I should have did this," or "I made a mistake."
I think there's like the time dilation stuff of I wish I invested in Zoom in 2019, but I feel like most of it is I've been like incredibly cautious there's plenty of stuff where like I don't regret being an aggressive saver and it changed some of my attitudes. Though there are also dumb things of I wish I had just ponied up the money and done this thing that like massively improved my life. Like I didn't get a Kindle until my senior year of college. And I'm like, this makes textbooks so much easier. I should have just like done this earlier. So I think there is a balance to be struck with enjoy your money for the utility it provides. But also, I think if I didn't have that baseline attitude, I would be worse positioned now. I guess right now I'm kind of the like, should I have invested all this time and energy and money into the field of finance and getting my licenses? Should I have sort of kind of quit my previous job? Like
Well,
it's
that so
all
that leads me
very
to the,
close and near to home.
so let's kind of end with that. What is next for you, do you think?
Yeah, it's the job hunt right now. Now I'm looking at this job market that's like very frosty and kind of thinking like, okay, do I go all in on the weird alternative stuff? Do I just try and find any firm that will carry my licenses? Do I go back to just a job that'll give me insurance? Right now I'm looking at house hacking stuff, but there's a lot of variability out there. The dream job is paraplanning role, which is the back officey stuff, or a junior advisor role for financial advising. And junior advisor is more client facing, where you're doing the discovery meetings and like asking about what people want out of their life, what their current situation is. Paraplanning's more the back office filling out paperwork. Both of those are interesting to me, but they're
I was gonna say,
hard
what
roles to
what would you
find.
like? I would say, do you like one of those more than the other?
I definitely like the client facing aspect. Typically, you're expected to bring your own clients, which is very that was my issue previously. It's like they're like, okay, bring in your market. I'm like, I don't have a market. Help.
Right, right. Well, I want to say, Candela, I am so happy for you that you got started early, and I'm excited to what's going to come your way. I mean, you're so articulate, you know so much, you're super smart, and I'm excited for all the things you're going to accomplish. So that's super awesome. And I want to thank you for talking to me today. I really do appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone for listening, for following along, for again sharing with your friends and family and neighbors. And we will see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See ya.